Do you know what's the most interesting thing about Justin Herbert? It's the poetry he inspires. Since entering the league, he's been quite a muse to his lovers and haters alike, inspiring gushing sonnets and vitriolic haikus, though the latter mostly from Dolphins fans. And it's ironic, considering he's the least interesting star athlete of all time. So why does this milquetoast All-American inspire such varied takes? Are his skills truly worthy of a spectrum? Or do they fall neatly somewhere between good, bad, or even mid? Let's take a closer look at the complete opposite of the Dos Equis guy and try to answer once and for all. How good is Justin Herbert? First, let's get to know Justin Herbert a little bit better. Growing up in Oregon, Herbert was a multi-sport athlete. Eventually, he settled on football, playing QB for his hometown Ducks. Despite possessing some pretty crazy measurables, he wasn't highly recruited. Nevertheless, he had a solid career playing for the Ducks, throwing 95 touchdowns across 4 seasons, and ending his time there with a Rose Bowl win. Despite his solid college career, obvious measurables, and the 4.0 GPA as a biology major, Herbert was not considered a safe draft pick. Some draft nicks even didn't consider him a first-round prospect. However, with the Chargers picking 6 overall and having just moved on from Phillip Rivers, they quote-unquote reached for the quarterback. All in all, he was selected after Joe Burrow, which made sense, and Tua, which was not controversial at the time, but more on that in a bit. Even with the benefit of hindsight, I think it's fair to say that coming into the NFL, Herbert wasn't properly rated. But that would all change during week 2 of Herbert's rookie season. Herbert famously got his first chance to play in an NFL game thanks to the Chargers apparently employing Dr. Nick Riviera. Despite not getting any first-team reps or preseason, Herbert showed poise in almost beating the reigning Super Bowl champs. From there, Herbert ended up having arguably the greatest rookie season of all time, finishing the season with the most touchdown passes in history for a first-year player. And beyond just the records, he captured people's imagination with his propensity for long bombs. His accolades and highlight reel throws arguably shielded the fact that it wasn't a particularly successful season, win-loss-wise, though largely Anthony Lynn, his coach at the time, was blamed for that. To get the most out of this obvious star quarterback, the Chargers parted ways with Lynn. It was heavily rumored that Brian Daboll, the man largely credited with Josh Allen's ascent, would become the next Chargers coach. The Chargers opted for Brandon Staley, a defensive-minded coach. Staley initially set out to find a coordinator coming from the Shanahan-McVay tree, but was blocked from several candidates, one of them being Mike McDaniel. He eventually settled on Joe Lombardi, Sean Payton's QB coach. Despite settling, Herbert's first season with Lombardi was a smashing success. Sure, his ADOT wasn't that impressive, but he was throwing for over 5,000 yards, and the offense was one of the best in the league, according to several key metrics. The season was considered largely a success, despite the fact that the Chargers didn't make the playoffs in the most Chargers fashion ever. So going into the 2022 season, Herbert was getting a lot of praise from every corner. He was largely considered a top 4 quarterback, and some even were saying he was about to become the best quarterback in the league. That hype died down pretty quickly after Herbert's ribs turned into Chex Mix in week 2. Still, despite not having the greatest stats that season, Herbert was able to take an injury-riddled team to the playoffs and would have won his first playoff game, 27-0, if NFL games ended with 25 seconds left in the first half. So after a bizarre loss to the Jaguars in the playoffs, Herbert, for the first time since his rookie season, started facing real questions of how good he was. So was the hype justified? Let's take a look. The most striking thing about the anti-Herbert argument is how convoluted and, quite frankly, weird it is. That's not to say there aren't valid criticisms, but a lot of the criticisms are just bizarre. The same person will say he's too robotic and careful, but also say he throws a lot of interceptions, especially in big moments. So which one is it? Is he by the book, or does he take too many chances? Despite a lack of cogency coming from a lot of the anti-Herbert camp, there are some valid criticisms of the QB. I want to talk about some of his weaknesses by looking at the best game he's ever played in his NFL career, and that's the 2022 matchup against the Dolphins. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about some of the holes in Justin Herbert's game. Like I just mentioned, he's considered robotic and probably stays too much in structure. Also, he has a propensity to maybe not come up big in some moments, though as Ben Solak pointed out, that's not necessarily the case. But despite what the numbers show, it seems like he's failed to step up big in some key moments, or at least in primetime games, the games that people will remember the most. Fair or not, he hasn't won those games. Why is that? It's because he doesn't always play like he did in that Dolphins game. Herbert came into that game like a man possessed. The manufactured Tua-Herbert rivalry was actually a rivalry because, for the first time in his career, Tua had showed some significant potential under first-year head coach Mike McDaniel. Not to mention, Fox Sports talking head Emmanuel Acho fast became the most famous Herbert hater. His branding of the Chargers quarterback as a social media QB became a huge meme and likely bulletin board material, as evidenced by Justin Herbert's celebration here. But even beyond some uncharacteristic celebration, Herbert took more risks than he usually did and played out of structure more often. Also, his coordinator at the time moved the pocket around more often than usual, showcasing Herbert's ability to throw on the run. I got the sense from watching this game that Herbert wasn't as obsessed with going through the reads and was more ready to escape the pocket to make a play. Though I don't want to make a definitive statement here because I don't want to be one of those tape guys who just assume that Herbert could never read an NFL offense from watching college game tape. Also, this game doesn't necessarily disprove that he's unable to complete a comeback. And I mean, it's not like one game would show that. But what it does underline is the fact that Herbert can make big throws in big moments. With a 6-point lead late in the fourth quarter, made some very tough throws to ice the game. All in all, Herbert showed creativity and poise in a crucial game. And quite frankly, it doesn't always feel like he always plays like this. Sure, you can point to anomalies for reasons why he's not coming up big in these situations, especially this season so far. But not to be too glib about it, welcome to being a quarterback in the NFL. And I agree, judging quarterbacks based on wins and losses is incredibly stupid. But it doesn't change the fact that you play to win the game. And the best quarterbacks are expected to overcome roster deficiencies, injuries, and even something as terrifying as the curse that's been obviously placed on the Chargers franchise. And as unfair as it may seem that Herbert has to overcome anomalies that other quarterbacks might not have to, them's the breaks. But I do believe if he plays more like he did in that Dolphins game, where he was willing to go outside of structure and generally play like his hair is on fire, he can overcome the Chargers charging. In other words, the more he plays out of structure, the less bad choices that Brandon Staley can make. So to answer the question, how good is Justin Herbert? He's clearly a very good quarterback and deserves to be in the top 5, but if he wants to be any better than that, he probably needs Emmanuel Acho to write some more poetry about him. Alright, thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Also, make sure to leave a comment below, Dolphins fans, and let me know how much you hate Justin Herbert.